Between by Sister Says Go. Chapter 2. I See You. Trigger warning. Eye trauma at the end of the chapter. Midoriya Inko was having a good day. She and Izuku had had a lovely breakfast. He had gone to play in his room, and she had gone to work dusting the house. It was a peaceful morning, and she would be hard-pressed to be happier. In fact, she was pretty sure today was going to be one of those days where absolutely nothing would go wrong. After all, she and Mitsuki had plans to go out to lunch later, and she was going to drop Izuku off to play with Katsuki while they did so. She was even planning to make katsudon for dinner, which she was sure Izuku would be happy about. All in all, a good day. She heard a muffled thump, but just assumed one of the neighbors had dropped something. Probably the nice old man next door. He was getting on in years, and his grip was shaky at best. Maybe she should go over later and make sure he had remembered to eat today. Later, though. Shaking her head and putting it out of her mind, she went to pick up a small vase that was currently empty so that she could dust the shelf behind it. Maybe, if things went really well today, Izuku would get his quirk. He was so excited for it to happen after all. Her little boy wanted to be a hero to help people, and she couldn't be prouder. She smiled softly, closing her eyes at the thought. Then she heard her child screaming in fear. Her eyes snapping open, she dropped the vase she was holding and ran, ignoring the shards of pottery now covering the floor. As she ran past the kitchen, she reached out without thinking and felt the handle of a knife from the wood block hit her palm, just as the large clatter of said block filled with knives hitting the floor could be heard behind her. She ran down the hall, reaching the door of Izuku's bedroom right before throwing it open, absolutely ready to stab the hell out of whoever was hurting her baby. Only to find Izuku cowering in the corner, hiding his face in his hands as if to avoid looking at the otherwise empty room. Lowering the knife, she looked around one more time in confusion, and upon seeing nothing out of the ordinary aside from what looked like some drops of white something setting into the carpet between Izuku and the desk, she set the knife on the small desk beside her and slowly made her way over to her son. "Honey, are you okay?" Upon hearing her voice, instead of sitting up and telling her that he was okay as she was hoping he would, he instead curled up in an even tighter ball before whispering something that sent confused chills up her spine. "Mommy, the tall man has too many teeth." "What?" "He's scary and his colors are all wrong." "What?" "Please make him go away." Okay, time to figure out what her poor baby was talking about and hope that the chills that were still crawling down her back meant nothing. "Izuku, honey, there's nobody here." She got a glimpse of green peeking out between tiny fingers for only a second before he hid again, this time with a small hiss of pain. That's when she realized that he was crying, that it wasn't just water coming from his eyes. "Mommy, the tall man is gone, but the colors still hurt." Oh, God, there were streaks of white the same shade as the spots in the carpet mixed into the tears, the same shade as the whites of his eyes. And now that she was closer, she could smell blood. Okay, don't freak out, don't freak out. Izuku, honey, please look at me. Can you do that for Mommy?" For a moment, he didn't move. Then, after a slight nod, he slowly, oh, so very slowly, lowered his hands away from his face and... oh God. Oh dear God, his eyes. "Mommy." His eyes had melted. Where there should have been whites was black, an empty, dark void absorbing all light. His tears were streaked with red and white, a mix of blood and what was left of his eyes, what hadn't already soaked into the carpet, or his shirt, that is. And his pupils? They might be the worst thing that she could see yet. He had maybe a little over half a dozen irises floating in the voids where his eyes used to be, melting and shifting like the wax inside a lava lamp. She couldn't keep track of the ever-changing count as he stared right at her with those pits filled with swimming green. Even the color was shifting, though it always came back to the same dark green shade he had been born with. "Mommy." Inko couldn't help it. She screamed. Notes! Last chapter, I traumatized a small child, and the readers. This chapter, I traumatize his mother, and the readers. I regret nothing.